carried.
Good evening, it's 5:30 p.m. on Wednesday, August 23rd. I'll call to order this regular meeting of the Cuyahoga Falls City School District Board of Education. Ms. Doikoy, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Ms. Coco?
Here.
Mr. Gomez?
Here.
Mr. Harris?
Here.
Mrs. Schaefer?
Here.
Ms. White?
Here.
Thank you. Item B is approval of the agenda. Number 1 is a motion to approve the agenda. It's recommended that the Board of Education approve the agenda of the August 23rd, 2023 Board of Education meeting. Action by the Board of Education and adoption of a consent agenda means that all items are adopted by one singular motion unless a member of the Board of Education, Treasurer, or Superintendent requests that any such item be removed from the consent agenda and voted upon separately.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Ms. Coco?
Aye.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Mrs. Schaefer?
Aye.
Ms. White?
Aye.
Thank you. Item C is the opening ceremony. Number 1 is the informational items. This meeting is a meeting of the Cuyahoga Falls Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business. It is not a public community meeting, although there are opportunities for public participation. If an individual wishes to address the board regarding a topic found on the meeting agenda, the individual must complete a registration form found inside the attendance notebook and present it to the treasurer. Following the introduction of the topic by the board president, followed by board discussion, the individual will be recognized. If an individual wishes to address the board regarding a topic not found on the meeting agenda, they must notify the superintendent and or board president of the topic no later than 3 business days in advance of the meeting. These individuals may share their comments during the board business portion of the agenda. In both cases, the individual will preface comments by announcement of their name and address and limit comments to 3 minutes. All statements should be directed to the board president. No person may address or question board members individually. In addition, in public session, the board will not hear complaints about school personnel nor against any person connected with the school district. An unabridged board agenda for this meeting can be found on your electronic device at the address shown on the screen, and for your convenience, hard copies of the board agenda may be found on the table by the sign-in book. The next regularly scheduled meeting of the Cuyahoga Falls Board of Education is September 13th, 2023 at 5:30 p.m. right here in the Cuyahoga Falls High School Library. Now for our Pledge of Allegiance, and welcome Mr. Harris.
Please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome. Our vision, Cuyahoga Falls City Schools, the hub of our community, committed to a culture of caring. We innovate, we create, we personalize education for all. Our mission, every student, every day, every opportunity. The board's strategic plan goals are as follows. School safety, we aspire to have a welcoming environment that ensures that the physical and social well-being needs of every student and staff member are met. Academic growth, we aspire to have significant growth through personalized education for all students. We aspire to improve graduation rates so that our students are prepared for employment, enrollment, or enlistment. Engagement, inclusion, and diversity. We will ensure that every student has access to resources they need when they need it in order to be successful. Lastly, technology and systems integration. We aspire to create safe, secure, and efficient technology systems to support high-quality teaching, learning, and district operations.
Thank you. Item D are our presentations tonight. We have 3. First up, we have a student recognition, and I'd like to invite up Mr. Johnson.
Very nice.
I first want to thank the Board of Education and Dr. Salko for giving us the opportunity to come here tonight and recognize one of our new Hall of Famers, Lucas Albrecht. Lucas earned 12 varsity letters in 3 different sports in his 4 years at Cuyahoga Falls High School. That makes Lucas an automatic qualifier for our Athletic Hall of Fame. Lucas's 4 letters won 4 letters in these 3 sports: cross country, swimming and diving, and track and field. Lucas not only excelled in athletics, but he also excelled academically. He finished his high school career with a 4.07 cumulative GPA. He was a member of the Tiger Marching Band, and he is also an Eagle Scout.
Wow.
Lucas is attending Youngstown State University this year and will be majoring in computer science. He actually just told me he moved in today, and he's heading back after this meeting, so he's really at Youngstown State. We just want to congratulate Lucas on being the newest member of the Cuyahoga Falls Athletic Hall of Fame. You can obviously tell he's a really put-together young man. Did some really, really great things here at Cuyahoga Falls High School, and we're super proud of him. So, Lucas, all the
We're gonna get a picture.
Yep.
Wait,
I
wait,
have a question too. Is one of those letters in marching band?
I should be 13 if you count marching.
13.
Oh, cool.
we're gonna get a picture too, stay up there. And we have a certificate.
Okay.
There you go. Two. I think we can wait for his parents, maybe? Whoops, Mr. Johnson, his parents. Thank you. Oh, of course. Would you like to be in the picture with them? I can take your picture.
It's all about the. We good?
That's awesome.
Have a good, safe travels back.
Good luck. Good luck. Love that he came back.
Our second presentation is Technology in the Classroom. I'll invite Mr. Hutch and his team of Ms. Erin Fulton and Mr. Alex Orris.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for being here.
We'll let our boss kick off.
Well, thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk about technology, because I think we think about the computers and the servers and the hardware side of things, but what is often not seen except by those in the buildings is what's going on in the classrooms every day with our kids, and we're really excited about highlighting that opportunity for you. So we're going to present kind of on what's been, and then with a little hint about where we're going. And we have with us Aaron and Alex, who I will brag about are humbly, but they are probably two of the best professionals in the business in this role anywhere you'll ever find. You will not find two more competent, dedicated, creative, hardworking, I can't have enough great adjectives. So we have uniquely talented people. And I also, while they're no longer on the team, want to make sure we give credit to Kathy Nicholson and Ron Winkler, whose work was also has been similarly high quality. And we sort of stand on the shoulder of them as we move forward. And this presentation is all there, so with that introduction, I'm out of the way, and I'll answer any questions that need to be answered, but they've got a 10 minutes, 15 minutes presentation for you, and then the clicker should be
Oh, all right, great. Well, I'm Alex, thanks for having us. For the past 8 years, I've done middle school technology integration, so Bullock and Roberts. And integration is not clicking. Yeah.
Mr. Hutch, you're gonna have a great technology.
Yeah,
Did you turn it off?
this is a nice
turn it
trick.
off and turn it back on.
Restart. I think we're too far away.
Integration.
Wave you.
Yeah, there you go. Integration had always been about preparing our teachers and students for using technology to enhance instruction. And so integration was, we didn't necessarily have a technology class at the elementary schools or the middle schools. We wanted it in all content. We wanted, instead of practicing typing on a Google Doc or on word processing, we were going to do that in language arts anyway, so let's do it there. We didn't want a separate class necessarily for using a slideshow, we would do that in presentation. So what we kind of put together was some of the highlights over the last little bit that we're really proud of and have moved our district forward. Hopefully you've already heard about some of these things, but it's never a bad idea to just kind of reshare. And so when we work with staff and students, our primary focus is working through the staff with the students. So professional development has been really big on our side. We both came from the classroom. We both had great working relationships with the teachers when we taught in the classroom at our old schools, and that led us to Cuyahoga Falls to help with teachers, help instruct. And so we do all sorts of lessons, whether it's in staff meetings, we do local and state conferences, we do district professional development for all staff. And then we publish and create kind of like updates, reminders. We have a Tiger One website and newsletter that we send out monthly that kind of highlights things that are going on in the world of technology of education and some helpful tips. And it gives us an opportunity to point people to resources when they need it.
And I'll quickly introduce myself, Erin. I worked last year at 3 of our elementaries, DeWitt, Richardson, and Price, alongside Ron Winkler, who took care of the other 3 elementaries. And likewise, you know, it all starts with the teachers. Day one, we're giving professional development on how to set up their grade books, how to initiate district-level resources that we are trying to incorporate, even into this year. Like, the big thing is Parent Square. How do I run Parent Square? We have new Lightspeed program that we're integrating now. How do I use that? So it all starts day one with that professional development and continuing that throughout the year. Will it work?
So we're going to kind of go back and forth because while we do the same thing, we do it at different levels with different teachers. So some things at Bullock and Roberts over the last couple years, we do a lot of problem solving with integrated lessons. Erin mentioned grant writing, or Will. And
Yeah.
so with some grants, we have both district purchased equipment and then grant equipment from like GAR Foundation. So we do some robotics in the classroom, virtual and augmented reality to bring like those abstract content into the classroom. We do all sorts of creation tools. And when I present, almost every time I talk to teachers, I talk about students leading the way and students being the creators, not consumers. So if we just get Chromebooks out and we have 4,000 Chromebooks, but all they're doing is consuming content on that Chromebook, they're not reaching that highest level of learning. And so getting students to create, I kind of joke and say that the one that leaves the day tired is the one who does all the work. And we want our students leaving tired, you know, not our teachers. So let's make sure that they're fully engaged throughout each lesson. And at the elementary,
So similarly at the elementary, we're trying to get those students to harness those technologies and actually utilize them in creative ways. We don't want them to be passive in their learning. So much of learning, education, and the broader world is technology-based, so we got to get them up and running. So we've done things like how to make presentations is a big one. We'll start with the how-tos, the basics, and then get into the actual content. The teacher is co-teaching with me where they're saying, here are the things that I need you to integrate, and I'm showing them how to integrate that into things like a Google slide. Going over Google Docs, we do some basic keyboarding skills. You can definitely tell the difference between his middle school stuff and my cute little bunnies and kitty cats over there for my kindergartners. They're learning how to use the trackpad. We have to start with the basics before I can teach a kindergartner how to use a Google slide. They have to know how to use a trackpad. So we're really starting with the basics at the elementary level. And then doing things like Google Drive and Gmail organization, because as I tell my students all the time, so many of the adults, and I don't want to, you know, shame anybody, grow up and have thousands of emails in their inbox because we were never explicitly taught how to organize things like that. We just had to jump in and figure it out ourselves. We have the opportunity now to start with the basics with our youngest students and show them from the start, before their emails get flooded, here's how you organize that, here's how you search for things, here's how you keep it neat and tidy, so that you can grow up and be an organized adult without thousands of emails in our inbox. Again, no shame, I get it. You're busy people. Okay. One of the big things that I did this year that I'm very proud of is Frankie, and of course, Frankie is here with me. Frankie is my Chromebook that we use for our students to understand Chromebook care. So Frankie here was a damaged Chromebook that I found and may have done some additional damages too, to kind of illustrate to students what can happen to a Chromebook. And then we sat there and we thought about how could those damages have been caused, because I didn't know how they were created. We just had to kind of think through what could somebody do to cause this damage to a Chromebook so that we know not to do those things. So even up to 5th grade, they are in love with Frankie, and I think for the first 4 months of school last year, nobody knew my name, but they said, "You're the Frankie teacher." So Frankie has been fully integrated into at least 3 of the schools last year, and then we hung up posters in all of our schools that just said Frankie says, to kind of reinforce those skills throughout the year, and then so that teachers could follow through, and when they see a student doing something inappropriate, they can say, "What would Frankie say about what you're doing there?" And of course, that one little poster, if you see it, was hung up in the teacher's lounge because it's an adult reference.
Relax.
So it says, "Frankie says, relax."
Don't do it.
Yeah. That is Frankie.
So some unique spin-offs of integration is as we started building Makerspace and we got initial grant for a 3D printer, and then the district was kind enough to add some 3D printing resources to our buildings. 3D design is a really powerful way to get kids engaged in things that we can't necessarily teach in the classroom or couldn't with integration. And so social studies teachers would often have students build things with cardboard, draw it out. Well, we started adding a layer of, well, you could draw it out, you could build it with cardboard, or I can teach the class, everybody, how to design it in 3D using software, and then we can print all of them, or we can have a competition of which ones get printed. Because if you know a little bit about 3D design, that's really easy. When you go to do prints, it could take 5 to 10 hours to print some of these things. And so whether it was through cross-curricular art, my favorite one is in the middle, where our teacher basically took an entire series of lessons built around design, and they designed their own Funko Pop that they could print, but then they would paint it, they would create the clothes for it, they hung those up in the hallways and at the art show. Some of these are from Technology Club as well, but we had students that would enter designs for printing the trophy for the students versus staff soccer game, or we had a turkey trot, so instead of buying medals, we had a competition, kids designed the medals, we 3D printed them, we handed those out. Students would make gifts for their family members. We trained students on how not just to create, but to run the 3D printers on the back end. And we really focused on how engineering and creativity and problem solving and the process. We had students that would print something, that process one that did not work. They could see it come out, they could try it, they could see what they needed to improve on, and then they could print it again. And so 3D, I don't want to say started at the middle school, but that was our first grant, and it spread rapidly.
Into the elementaries. So our big 3D design was with our 5th graders, and they ended up making name keychains. So we were just starting with the bare minimum basics. How do we utilize the program Tinkercad? How do we pull things in? How do we create? And you know, you had the range from just a plain old name with the little keychain, and other people who were getting creative and writing in cursive to make their name and adding like skulls and cats and fun stuff to it. So it was fun getting to see all the variations in their skill levels and their creativity. And then that kind of led into my 3D print club at DeWitt. So my students were given a challenge to take a little figure and move it 3 feet across the line using whatever manner of design they wanted to. So you can see some people decided to build cars. We had some catapults. My favorite is the last one. She made a rubber band car that functioned really well. It took the longest to get it to go. I think it's this next one. Yep. But it worked so well, and just the excitement after months of working on this rubber band car, printing out all the individual pieces, making them all fit, having to reprint, putting it all together. It's a long process, but it was definitely worth it to see what the kids were able to come up with when given problem-based, what am I trying to say?
Like authentic learning.
Yes.
And,
Okay?
design challenge.
Challenges, yes.
Yeah, so, and a lot of what we tried to introduce in the classroom, we could not thoroughly flesh out because of time and there being a limited number of us and a lot of classes and a lot of students. And so we tried to create opportunities where some of those students would get, where all the students would get a taste of, whether it's 3D design or robotics with coding, and then have opportunities for them to take it to another level. And so one of the things we did, Bullock and Roberts, it's been about 5 years, is with integration. We have a technology club, and those students kind of lead the way. So when we go back in the classroom with another lesson, we have pockets of kids that already understand how to run the programs. They can support the students around them, and they can support the teachers, because integration is really about us giving the teachers the tools and helping them plan it and model it. But if they want to do it all week long, or they want to do it every Monday, that doesn't necessarily work with how our schedules to work with the next class or the next teachers. So to give them those tools and then to allow them to continue it. So having students that have that knowledge, that can support their classmates, that can support their teachers. And we did a lot of really cool things with Technology Club. It wasn't like a prescribed lesson where every Wednesday morning I was teaching this to all the kids. It was, here's about 8 opportunities that we have materials for, and here's the support materials for how you would, let's just kind of 3D print, or we did a couple different types of robotics with VEX, and we did Sphero, and they did Chromebook repair. And so they basically formed groups, and within those groups they would work through the basic skills together, and then they would come to me and ask questions. So instead of teaching all the students all 8 things, they pick and chose what things they wanted to explore. They would learn and grow together and ask questions, and then they could switch groups. They could basically test out of a group, or you know, get very skilled in one thing and then say, I want to try something else. And out of Technology Club, working with that VEX IQ, I hope you remember last year and the year before, a group of those students competed at Neotech. They won in 2022, and then they won again last year, and they participated in Bot Ball and the Maze Challenge and Mini Sumo. And so we're hoping that many of those students will continue on that path.
Similarly, we took coding down to the elementary level. So again, as I did a 3D print club at DeWitt, now they're requesting a coding club at DeWitt because of how much the students love doing coding. So this is where we really integrated into the lessons. You can see my B-bots there. We worked on maps, we worked on coordinates. So that was something they were already working on in social studies. We were just able to incorporate the B-bots to problem solve how we get that B-bot across the map, working on identifying what were the coordinates in the end. We even worked on things like cardinal directions, where they were given those and had to figure out what coordinates they ended at, things like that. We worked on the basics of coding from K all the way up to 5. Kindergartners can code at the basic levels, but up at 5th grade we started working on things like block coding, and they were able to use block coding to do Spheros. So we were in the gym with the 5th graders, and they were able to pull those blocks in and get the Spheros to go on these missions that we came up with, 4 different missions to see what they could do with their coding skills. And then we worked on things like debugging a code. So they're getting a lot of that terminology that they're going to be hearing for the rest of their lives. When we have a program that pops up that says, we fixed this bug, well, now our elementary students know what that means because we've introduced the basics of coding to them. And then we both helped out with STEAM Night at DeWitt, and I know a lot of people were able to make it to that. The people at DeWitt are absolutely amazing with their technology integration, their STEM integration, and they love hosting this event, and it is absolutely fantastic for the families. So if you haven't been, come to it this year. I brought out some Spheros and B-Bots for people to kind of test out. And then we were just showing off our 3D printing club that we did at DeWitt, and then Alex.
Yeah, so the robotics team set up their VEX robots and they demonstrated kind of like how they would program it to compete in mini sumo by pushing each other off the table. Those robots, or the robot that would in bot ball go and retrieve a ball for points.
And then one of the big things that me and my counterpart Ron Winkler worked on at the end of the year was getting kindergarten tour videos up and running. So our tour videos previously were kind of not quite so up to date, so we had to get them redone. We worked hard on learning Adobe, and if you've ever been in Adobe, it is just a puzzle to solve. There's so much involved in learning those programs, but that was something big that we tackled here at the end of the year, just taking videos of all of those classrooms and things that the kindergartners needed to see before they entered the building or wanted to see before they entered, and then putting them together into videos. And you can actually see those videos when you go to the kindergarten orientation page. All 6 of those videos are on that site. So that was basically our year, and now we're kind of transitioning into our new role as tech coaches for the district. Me at all 6 elementaries, and Alex at the middle schools and the high school. Anything else?
Yeah. If there's any questions we could answer. I would say one last thing, one thing that we maybe skipped over, I hope you saw a lot of, is that when we are integrating lessons, we're covering standards in multiple categories. So we have tech standards for the state of Ohio that we're trying to make sure that our students are getting and our teachers are helping to teach. And it's also covering their content standards. So when we can relate a math lesson and polygons with drawing a shape with a sphere by programming it, they're learning multiple standards that are kind of tied into one lesson.
And things like that can definitely help with differentiation, especially for our high-level kids, where they may know the content, but now you're adding in a whole nother piece that they can kind of help other students with. So they're getting a little bit extra instead of just learning content that they may already be acquainted with. Any questions?
I had a question, actually 2 questions. The clubs that you've done at the elementary, are those an after school or are those during the school day? How do those?
My one at DeWitt was during the school day, so students had to apply to come in, and then they did it. It was kind of like during their Tiger time, where I was pulling kids who already had work done and who applied to be in my club, and we were able to pull them during those times as long as they were available. And we just kind of had a rotation because not all students finished at the same time. I had some kids who were done within 3 sessions and some who took 3 months to get it done. So it was just a constant rotation of students in and out.
And then at the middle school?
So the robotics club we ran before school, kind of in the before that bell. So students could enter at 7:30. We brought those kids in just a little bit early because they were coming, a lot of them anyway. And instead of sitting in the hallway or sitting in the cafeteria, that's when we took time to give them, the chance to work with some of the materials that they couldn't access during the day if they didn't have a study hall, they didn't have the opportunity during WIN. That's how we ran ours.
And thank you. And my other question is, all these great, amazing things, and DeWitt is great with their technology and all that. How do we ensure that that gets incorporated at that level at all 6 schools?
So,
elementaries?
like with my 3D print club, it was necessary to be 3D printing like every day for me to get those kids' prints up and going. So every school that I visited, the first thing I would do was go and turn on their printer because all of our elementaries had a 3D printer. So like at Richardson, theirs was up and running in the library. So I made sure that when students were walking in, they were able to see those 3D prints running. The teachers were able to see the 3D prints running. So I had teachers starting to inquire, can I do a 3D print lesson? How do I get that done? And then we've started working on incorporating that this year into their lessons. How do we get that 3D printing in now that they've seen it and are interested in it? Because I think before the 3D printers weren't getting a lot of use, so a lot of them didn't even know, they were available to us. So it's just little things like that you kind of on the side show them something that piques their interest and get them involved, instead of kind of trying to force it on them.
Thank you. And just a quick plug for the maker space at the library.
I was gonna say, that was another
Make-
thing with the 3D printing, is that like my 3D print club at the end of the year, we were kind of pushing them towards, we would have kids saying, oh, I really wanted to do this. Good news, the library has a 3D print space that you guys can utilize, and we actually took a tour.
We toured with them, took our
Yes.
team over to the public library to look at the cool things.
Yeah. So we've started to develop a relationship with them over there, trying to keep tabs on what we're teaching at our schools so that they can start integrating that into the library space, so it can be a little bit more connected between the two of us.
Awesome. My daughter loves to go to the
Yes.
maker space, and I will say that I'm always saddened that there's not more students and kids in there using that
I
space.
don't think people
So,
know
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
much
Yeah, I don't
the
think
city
they do
provides,
either.
and that library is really great.
Thank you.
Is there any way that some of our high school kids might be able to mentor at middle or elementary schools?
Yeah, so actually, the timing is always playing. Like, it just, things have seemed to fall into place so many times. And so this afternoon, Mrs. Allerton and I were working with a new to the district junior who is really high on 3D printing. And if you go in the maker space that's now in the media center, we have 3 in there. And so he's gonna help run some print jobs that we have for teachers. We have run over there and grab it. We have a teacher that's been printing skulls to show the different jaw lines of different nationalities. And that way, we're kind of starting slow at the high school now, trying to get a little bit up to speed. But yeah, we have that student. We have a perspective of 3 ninth graders that were really strong in 3D printing with me at Roberts that we're gonna inquire tomorrow to see if they wanna come in and help lead that. And that way we can get teachers going first, get students going, and then the logistics of getting them to support the middle and elementaries might be a challenge.
I know.
But that is definitely something we want to build. And when we think long-term and in our future, how a 12th grader could help a 6th grader very easily in a couple years,
Oh, good.
very,
Yeah.
very front of mind.
I think that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, real quick, I think because I came from a district that was K to 12 in one building.
Yeah.
And we
It's
built,
a lot easier.
they built that as soon as I moved in, and the biggest fear was my kindergartner near seniors. And we have to think of it the other way around, like, we can put leaders in front of our young kids earlier. There's a big benefit to
Yeah,
that.
I think so. Thank you.
With like the B-bots and the other things that you were showing,
Spiros.
Spheros, yes, thank you for that, because I could not remember the name. Do you have like one set of those that you have to travel with, or do we have those in elementary school?
The B-bots, because we kind of have students working together on those, we have enough, I can only speak for the 3 schools that I was working with last year, but we had enough to have a set of 10 at each of our schools, which worked well for a classroom to just kind of buddy up and be able to use those together. Spiros, I have one case that I kind of travel with, that it's one of those, I don't know that we get enough use out of them right now to warrant needing more, but that could change with, incorporating a coding club here at DeWitt and hopefully broadening that coding across the district. Hopefully we can make our way to needing more. But even like the BBOTs we talked about, we do some grant writing. One of the grants that I wrote for the Cuyahoga Falls Alumni Association was for mats to go with our BBOTs to place in each one of our schools so that teachers could have a little bit more flexibility. They didn't need me to come in and do a lesson with them, that those BBOTs would be available all the time for them to incorporate into their curriculum, whatever that may be. So.
And we do have some spheres at the middle schools, and one thing that we have loved is being able, even though we're at different levels, is to share resources and collaborate. So if there's a need for 3 sets at one building, we pull from set from Bullock, the set from Roberts, bring those to the elementary and vice versa. The elementary has brought materials up to the middle school when we had a larger scale that we wanted to do something with.
So, and we got to see some of the virtual reality last year. Mr.
Yes.
Hutch brought that to a board meeting.
That was awesome.
Some of us were better at it than others. I was not very good at it.
I didn't either, but it was awesome.
In terms of like forward thinking in a dream world, just to put it out there, what are some technology resources that maybe we don't have enough of in your opinion, or things that you wish we could have as you're forward thinking in these new positions? What are things that, like, as technology people?
I'm kind of jealous of the 3D printers he's got to work with. Mine are very basic at the elementary and not always kind of up to date. So definitely upgrades on 3D printers, especially if places like DeWitt want to go heavy on the 3D printing again this year. I think that would benefit us. And to have students be able to see what a basic 3D printer can do versus, the 3D prints that he's able to create on his devices would be definitely a nice thing. And then I think just tools to utilize with those things. Like I have a traveling toolkit that I use with my 3D printers that, it's just the little basic things that some things we do have to travel with that would be nice to not have to travel with.
I would agree, but I would also say that a lot of the stuff that we have asked for and we've brought as a need, you guys have supplied.
Yeah.
And I think that some of our equipment is, unfortunately technology outdates itself, whether it's through updates or whether it's through charging, that we might need upgrade in the future to replace some of those things that are going out. Thankfully though, when we started buying 3D printers that you'll see in there, they were about $2,000. And you can still buy that one for $2,000, but the last one we've been piloting is 60% of that, and it's twice as fast, it's more reliable, it can print in multiple colors, so the technology has advanced since we've dug in a little bit, and the costs have come down.
Awesome. Thank you. Anything else? Anything?
No,
Did we miss
I hope you
anything?
see why I brag about this team so
No,
much.
yes.
They do so much. Right now they're 2, and what they do through and for our kids and our teachers and our classified staff as well is just. I'm so glad we get to celebrate that for a minute. I'm so proud of this team every day.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. We really appreciate it. Thank you. Presentation number 3 is an ESSER funding update from Ms. Stoykoy.
Must be way better.
Are you doing this in VR?
No spoilers. I hope. I haven't seen it
I
yet.
know there's I didn't think ahead, but I know there is a meme in there.
Is there a spoiler?
That would be shocked to know that.
Don't want to disappoint my fans.
I read
But
ahead.
I'm saying no movie spoilers though, right?
No,
Okay.
no. All right, we are here to talk about ESSER. Yay. Oh, no, maybe we're not. All right, that was it.
The end.
You get your on. This clicker's been 50-50 today, but we might be on something.
There it is.
There we go. You've seen the Barbie movie.
Not yet.
Did you see that?
No.
It's good. I saw it with my daughters and my niece and sister and mom and sister-in-law. There was a big group of us, so we saw that at the end of July. It was a very good movie. Very good movie. Some of us may have cried a little. It wasn't me, but it did happen. It did happen. All right. Which one am I clicking here? The right?
The right one. The one that's
Oh, it is. Look at that. Okay. So ESSER 3, if you remember, what we were originally allocated a little over $5 million. We've gone through 2 fiscal years now with it and entering our 3rd and final. So funds are available, and it backdated to that March 13th, 2020. That great day everyone remembers, and will end September 30th, 2024. And then every 6 months, and no less, we'll review the plan and kind of revise it if necessary. So we're gonna, let's do this, okay? We're gonna do it. That's the president. This Barbie is the president in this movie, so that's the Barbie president.
There's multiple Barbies.
We're gonna jump right in then, salary and benefits. So you'll see a little bit of changes here, and that's due to the fact that our social workers were brought in-house. So if you remember previously, they were under purchase services because we contracted them through the ESC. This year, since they are in-house, they are moved under salaries and benefits since we will pay them through payroll. So we have 2 literacy specialists, 2 social workers come out of there, and then the other 2, the attendance liaison and the 3rd social worker, come out of the student wellness and success funds, that 467. So here's where we're at. This one's pretty easy. You can see what we spent over the last few years, and then we will spend the remainder of that by the end of this contract year for our staff. Purchase services, again, I mentioned those social workers. So you can see those were the total expenditures we had under purchase services while they were with the ESC. The YMCA programming that we did in the beginning was also part of this. And then the file scanning between my office, student services, and human resources with strategic solutions in order to have everything digital in case of another emergency down the road, and be able to have that virtually is actually very, very nice when I'm sitting at my desk not having to root around for somebody's file, and I'm sure Ms. McClure will agree with me in that. We really don't have a whole lot in purchase. Actually, we have nothing anymore in purchase services. We still need to make some payments on that file scanning. It's in installments as they're doing it because we gave them a lot. So that will be it for that. Supplies, this is kind of one of the bigger ones. So this would be all of our textbook adoptions that we did it in here, and the class fees that we've been covering since we've been waiving them for our families, and some of the electronic subscriptions. So in 22, we did the initial pilot of the literacy at the elementary level, and then some of the electronic subscriptions, which would be our Edmentum, and things like that. And then class fees for those different grade bands. Then last fiscal year, we did the science adoption, K-5. We finished out the rest of our elementaries in K-5 there for literacy. We did a 6-12 literacy ELA adoption last year. We are in the midst of working towards that math, so we bought some, kind of testing materials, pilot materials last year, and then you can see there's still a large amount budgeted there for this coming year. We kind of put a little bit of a pause on that last year, but looking to take care of that before the end of this grant. We did do a smaller adoption for the compacted 6th, 7th in the middle school, and then as you can see, the subscriptions fees for K-12 are all still in there for this year. So this is the bulk of where our money was in these supply categories.
I have a question. So with the September 30th, 2024, if there's any wiggle room towards the end of this, would there be a way that we could waive the fees next year, or part of the fees for next year, and throw money, if there's extra money, and throw it at that?
It's possible. It would have to be something though so we have to obligate the funds by June 30th. We have
Okay.
to liquidate them by
By
September
September
30th.
30th.
So we'd have to have basically all those orders in for what we would want for, the materials for the students to have in the following year in by June 30th.
Might be worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, if there's
If
certainly,
if there's wiggle room, it would
Yeah.
definitely be worth it, cause
yeah,
I
for
know
sure.
I'm really
I
worried
think we're
about
probably
how our,
anticipating a little more in that math than what's budgeted right now. We're kind of waiting to see. That's the
Yeah.
big one that's left outstanding. So kind of waiting to see that. But we can always make revisions throughout the year as well if we decide we'll do this again. This kind of breakdown in February, and that'll be really kind of our last
Yeah.
okay, where are we at and what are we doing with what's left over.
I'm just worried. I know we can't. If we look at our 5-year forecast, we can't absorb that into our general fund of waiving these class fees. We can't do it. We don't have the money
Yeah.
going forward. But at the same time, I'm very concerned about where our families stand.
Yeah.
And so
That is-
if we don't think we're gonna be able to do it next year, then I think we need to start finding ways, and it's not just your office, but we have to find ways to start communicating that,
Yeah.
so we're
That's
preparing our families
next
for
year's
it.
school fees are at the top of my list of
Cause I don't
discussions
think
to have
I don't think it
about-
can be a surprise. We can't just
No.
surprise families
Correct.
when we send them the bills.
So, yeah, that's at the top of my list to discuss with the other cabinet members who really honestly know more about what is needed than I do. I can go off past history, but just kind of looking at that, because I know there's still families out there that are struggling or need help. Obviously, if they qualify for free, those student fees are waived for them. But there's still all those families I know that are on the cusp just from the lunch program and them not qualifying and still needing assistance in that area.
And I think too, with the fees being waived the past couple years, it's not going to be on their radar. It's kind of dropped off everyone's radar, so it's gonna have to be something that is
Yeah.
communicated more than once.
Yeah.
in
Well,
different
there's
ways.
probably a couple hundred families that their first kid has joined our district in
Yes.
that time, so they
Yeah,
don't even
they
realize.
don't realize that that's even a
Because why would
possibility.
they have? So I just,
Yeah.
it's gonna be something we'll have to really communicate
Yeah.
sensitively and
Yes.
honestly.
Yes, that's for sure, That is a high priority
I
for
appreciate
me
it.
for next year. Finishing out supplies, Go Guardian, we used, it's more of the support service, not necessarily an instructional, but it's under the support services of supplies. And then our custodial supplies, which is another thing we've used as far as not necessarily school fees, but we've provided the hand sanitizer or tissues and things like that, so parents don't have to buy them off that supply list, which can get, as I'm well aware, can get extensive, and green folder this and purple binder 2-inch that, and it's very specific, and I understand that are probably for very good reasons, but it's a lot, and all those things are on there as well. So we've been able to use this to not only do cleaning supplies, but do those other kind of health and safety supplies that parents would normally be supplying to us. We had a little bit of capital outlay. So instruments, if you recall back in '22, we bought some instruments that we had for those students that maybe wanted to participate in band but economically couldn't afford to either buy or rent that instrument. So we bought some to keep just to loan out to those students so they were able to participate. We also, if you recall, our ESSER 2 is where we really paid for the bulk of that bipolar air ionization. And so this is just kind of the little leftover amount that is still ongoing for that upgrade to the boilers or HVAC controls so they would all work together properly. So if you look here are our grand totals. So we spent a little over $1 million in '22, about $2.2 million last year. So far this year we've spent 150, so we're at about 3.4 of that, little over 5 million. We've got almost 440,000 encumbered for different things, and then unencumbered funds right now is just a little over $1 million, but all with plans for the future for that. And a good majority of the unencumbered is salaries and benefits as well. So there's really not a ton. You can see that it's about 440,000 of that is supply or is salary and benefits. So it's so cool. Very cool. He's just Ken. Just Ken. Real quick, because we haven't had this one before too. So as part of the ARP ESSER 3. Is also referred to as ARP ESSER. We received some Title 6B funds, not as nearly significant as our ESSER 3 allocation, but about $239,000. These are on a little bit of a different timeline, so the funds were available for expenditures. July 29th is the date that our budget was substantially approved. It's different for everyone, so it's not like they just picked some random number. That's when our was approved by ODE, and then it's available through this November 2023. So those funds have to be liquidated by this November. So it's all the same allowable purposes as our regular IDEA funds that we receive the federal grant for, and subject to all the same provisions and everything that apply to those. And there was an equitable services requirement for the non-publics that are in our district. So originally was St. Joe's, IHM, and Redeemer, but then when St. Joe's closed, it's now IHM and Redeemer that we have equitable services requirement for. Which, I love. Just stuff doing. Federal grants and the non-publics are my favorite topic. It's catastrophic. Will Ferrell was also very good in this movie. All right, so this is a lot more condensed here, so we get right to purchase services. One of the things that we did was that behavior specialist, BCBA training that we had from the ESC, so we hired a person to come in last year and also come in this year for training of our staff and working with the aides there and help getting them trained. You can see part of that professional development as well. You'll see some of it was Wilson, because we bought some different foundations for K2 and those students, and so there was some professional development that went along with that, and then the RBT training for our paraprofessionals in attendance in those. You can see the non-publics, they both opted, Redeemer opted to do theirs just tutor services for those students. IHM did the same as well, but then they also have a little bit under the supplies category, so they split theirs a little bit. As I mentioned, the Wilson Foundation's K2 supplies, and then some more classroom supplies just for the two different grade bands, K5 and 612, and then there's those classroom supplies for IHM. And that's really it for that, because the majority of it was wrapped up in those purchase services. So right now, last year we spent about $95,000. 46,000 in, purchase orders are encumbered right now, and we've got about 96,000 left, but, that's just a matter of getting those purchase orders put on. We still have the same plan for the most part, and, Sarah and, Heather are doing a good job, making sure we meet those deadlines and, get that money spent by the 30th. And you can't forget Alan. He's also just Alan. Fun fact, my mom she has like she still does have like the original Midge and Alan and Ken, and then she let us play with them when we were little. I don't know why, especially me, because I didn't like Barbies. I played with G.I. Joes, and then she was like, here, have these like mint conditioned dolls, and of course we like cut their hair and did stuff like that. So, but she had like a little Midge suitcase.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she still has it. So I'm sure she's listening right now too. So and then Weird Barbie. See, I made a Weird Barbie with her, regular Barbies, her mint condition Barbies. Weird Barbie was my favorite. There's a lot of people that were a lot, yes. And so that will do it. And then, that's the Barbie my mom had.
Yeah, I had the one with the red bubble cut,
Yep.
the red-haired one.
Yep.
But yeah,
That's
same
the one
bathing
she had
suit.
with that black and white bathing. Yep.
The first, she had red hair bubble, like a bubble cut. I had her with the black and white bathing suit, and then the first Barbie dream house thing, yeah, I know.
I made a house out of cardboard.
I was so glad when they finally got the legs to bend. Because I had these beautiful horses, I shouldn't be talking, but the legs would stick out on the horses, so finally we got the bendable legs.
Last time, Patty, you didn't want to pay attention to my memes, and now I've got you hooked in. So, okay, see, I'm equal opportunity here.
Thank you.
Any questions or anything? This is last year go round here, so.
I just think it's clear we've made really good use of the money.
Yep, it is.
Yeah, we've been able to do a lot of things, and which has also helped the general fund throughout the last couple of years as well, and our families. So. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And I'll note that I think Ms. Toykoi is the only treasurer in the state of Ohio that actually follows the rule to give a presentation every 6 months. Because, as you know, I follow a lot of other school boards, and I don't think they've ever had an ESSER update in a lot of these other districts. So, kudos to her.
Been audited too many times.
Yeah, and it all helps us understand
It
a lot of
does.
things, not just how the ESSER money works, but where it's going, and then where that would fit without the ESSER money in our budget and everything, so, thank you.
Item E is Treasurer CFO's business consent agenda. Ms. Toykoi.
Thank you. I'd like to recommend that the Board of Education approve all items listed in the treasurer's consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Discussion?
Just the minutes and then donations. We've got a lot this time, but you can see a lot of different businesses that donated and helped with convocation there and helping things, and then some for Richardson, and then 8th grade students at BOE.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Mrs. Schaefer?
Aye.
Ms. White?
Aye.
Ms. Coco?
Aye.
Thank you. Item F, Treasurer CFO's business. Ms. Toykoi.
Yeah, I'd like to, sorry, I just realized I had something out of order on here. So I'd like to recommend the Board of Education approve the July 2023 investment schedule and monthly spending report.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Toykoi.
All right. We're gonna look at a couple things here. One, and you don't have to pull it up, but that commercial paper and bankers acceptances report. That's a report for last fiscal year. Red Tree is always good about reminding us and sending us the proper information. It is required to be reviewed by the board. It is, then I have to send something to ODE and the auditor, letting them know that we're compliant, and here's a list of those things that happened during last fiscal year. So you see that in every July report. You saw it last year, so it's the same thing. It's just a listing for them, and then we submit that. So we can look at interest. So July, so we're starting back at the beginning here, but we did have a good month, so 300,000. Again, I think I mentioned last time that we're starting to receive those advances from the county, and so our balances are a little bit higher. And some of those things we've also, if you recall, at the end of last year, added some more money to our regular Red Tree investment account. We put a few more $1 million over there. Good month. I hope it continues like this forever. So. Yes, I do. And then we will look at the general fund real quick. So general fund, again, as I mentioned, looking at those advances coming in, so a little over 12 million. Expenditures similar to previous years, a little under 5 million, and obviously a net result, like all the past years, is a large positive, and so that puts us right now at about 28 million when we ended July. So you can see that's about a little less than $1 million better than we were last year at this time. And you can see kind of the trend there as we get to those December and January months, and then start back up again. So still in a good position going into this year. And then the last one we'll take a look at real quick is athletics, just because I want to explain something. And before I do that, Mr. Gomez brought to my attention that the all funds didn't have any information in it. So I put it up during, I changed it. It's in there now. So, and I also emailed it to you. So you have it. So I don't know what happened there. So athletics. So couple things here. So previously for athletics, they had all of their, so they have, KJ has his own budget and everything, and that's all in there. But then when the teams or the clubs that were involved did different fundraising activities, that was all within the same account, which we consider the athletic account. This year, in order to have a little bit more checks and balances and making sure everyone was filling out the proper paperwork for fundraising things, and making our office aware, I decided to separate out those fundraising accounts. And so they are all still under the same fund, 300, but they're a different special cost center, giving it its own cash account than the general athletic account. So what you may see over the course of this year are numbers that look different, because now we're just looking at like the general athletics and not all that fundraising stuff. So you're not gonna see as high of numbers, but it gives us better internal controls over those teams and their fundraising activities, and making sure that everything's for a proper public purpose. So part of that is, you can see we have a -100 for that in athletics. Obviously, we're not bringing in any kind of ticket revenue or anything in July, and if there happens to be any kind of refunds for tickets that we may need, and things like that. And he's also not bringing in then all that fundraising, because beginning with this fiscal year, it started flowing to their own separate accounts. So that's the reason for that difference there, and it being negative for athletics. and then obviously as you go down, some of the revenues, there, are also a little bit skewed, so it brings that results of operations down, leaving us with that balance of 55,000, which looks drastically different than what we ended with, which was 110, but it's just being accounted for somewhere else now. So this is merely ticket revenue that's coming in and that kind of stuff, for athletics, and then those things that the athletic department determines, that, is necessary when he creates his budget for the year. That's what's in here for the expenditures. They also, if you remember, as part of our emergency levy plan, have a 5-year plan for buying new uniforms, and maybe larger pieces of equipment, as well as for the next few years, the Kent State rental is part of that, and that's separate from this as well. So that is coming out of the emergency levy fund, there. So that's not going to be captured in here, those uniforms. So I believe this year, football, and I think it was girls soccer was one, and I think I shared with you his 5-year plan for that, of getting on a cycle of replacing those and making sure they're up to date. So that's where that's at.
Unfortunately, with the athletic boosters as well, combining their efforts, boys golf actually got new uniforms this year as well. That was courtesy of athletic boosters though, so it's kind of nice that they're working together with us and we can magnify the work that we do with that money that we're investing as well.
Yes.
Any questions or comments? Please call the roll.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Mrs. Schaefer?
Aye.
Ms. White?
Aye.
Ms. Coco?
Aye.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye. Number 2, your comments?
This is just a personal comment, but I got a puppy last night.
Oh.
Yeah.
On purpose?
Yeah.
Her house was dogless.
It was dogless. It was really
Yeah,
weird
that's right.
for like the last 2 months, and so
There's 5 kids, chickens, goats aren't enough, and cats.
I have chickens.
Oh,
Do you want chicken?
what kind of puppy?
A German Shepherd mix.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
She's so cute. Zuma.
Oh, puppies are cute.
So,
I didn't name her, but
better than-
that was her name, and she already knew it. So
Oh.
yeah, it's very cute. So my kids are very excited.
Oh, yeah.
That's it.
Item G, Superintendent CEO's Business Consent Agenda, Dr. Selico.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez. I'd like to recommend that the Board of Education approve all the items listed in the superintendent's consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Comments? Okay. A lot of routine items here this evening, as it relates to personnel. The other things that you see listed, the contract for services, the panorama is the SEL survey that we did, and you saw the results of that last year, so we're going to continue that this year. We also have the 2 transportation agreements, one for Ed Alternatives and the other for AL Safe Transportation, but again, as it relates to transporting our special needs students, contracts there. And then lastly, the memorandum of understanding with the Cuyahoga Falls Police Department. That's for our SRO, and we need to renew that. Well, we do it every year. I'm not sure if that's a requirement, but I know we have to have one, so we've been doing it each year.
Questions or comments from the board? Please call the roll.
Ms. Schaefer?
Aye.
Ms. White?
Aye.
Ms. Coco?
Aye.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Thank you. Item H, Superintendent CEO's Business, Dr. Selico.
Thank you. I'd like to recommend that the Board of Education approve the job description for the bilingual family liaison position.
So moved. Second.
Dr. Selico?
Yes, just want to take a moment to share one of the goals that we have in terms of reaching out to our, particularly our Nepalese families, but also certainly wanting to reach all of our EL families and students. But in this particular instance, since we have over 200 Nepali students that we are struggling to, break down, I should say, some barriers with the families, we would like to recommend that we have a family liaison position in which this gentleman or female woman may have some connections. If you look at the job description, you'll see that we want to really focus on the communication between the home and school. So that could be through our district mass communications that we put out. It could be interpreting for families, assisting our families with registration, explaining discipline. If there are things that need further explanation, especially as it relates to like special education, for example, that person could be there to assist. And also, as we know, like food services, etc., and filling out forms. Also, as I mentioned, the interpreting and translating documents for us as well. We do reach out to a couple of organizations that we use, and while those are great, they are costly as well. But if we have a person on site and that we pay an hourly rate to, that those services could perhaps be addressed with this person as well, at least some of it, with the translation and interpretations. Again, just the collaboration and the partnerships, trying to bridge the gap between school and the homes, that they could have someone that they could feel comfortable going with, a nonpartisan kind of person that just really is there to help the families. It's about supporting and bridging the gap. So we would like to ask your permission to approve the job description, and then we would hire that person through the ESC, through like a 1090 situation in which they would be employed by the ESC, but certainly report to, it would be Mrs. Hausman, most likely in this instance, and work closely with Courtney as well. So.
Questions, comments from the board?
I have a question. Would this person's job be directed by like staff from Cuyahoga Falls, or would community members be able to reach out to the person, or how would that?
Well, the idea would be to have an introduction once we get this person, that perhaps Christine would put out a news release, and we would put something out to the families, letting them know that who this person is, and probably setting some parameters of how they can reach out to him, but certainly would have access to him if they need help with something. Certainly we will make him available, and just figure out how that exactly looks, maybe whether we get him a phone, cell phone that would make him most accessible, and figuring out hours and him keeping track, or what that would look like.
Like office hours or something?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And what's nice, if, we do have a couple, we'll post it, but we do have a person that I know is interested and has really expressed an interest in doing this. He said that he's available like in the evenings particularly, which is nice because he works till like in the early afternoon, like 1 o'clock, and he could be available for evening events too, which is what I also like. But so we would like to interview a couple candidates and see where we land.
Questions, comments?
Just a comment that I'm very excited about this position, and as a board, we've championed communication with our families, and this has been a gap that's been identified and a need for our district for a while, and is a growing need. So I'm very excited for us to have the opportunity to do this for our families.
I agree with that. I think if you looked in the Beacon Journal, our education for our Asian Nepali students, we see Asian, we think of our large group of Nepali students, was identified as an area that we need to work on. And I think in terms of building that family support, that's a great way to bridge those gaps, because when we aren't, as a district, providing the resources for our families to understand the education that we're providing for their students, we're not providing those students the best opportunities to succeed every day. So I think this will be an important support in terms of helping those families to support their students in their educational journeys with us. So I think this is a huge step forward. So I'm appreciative of our administration and the work that they did to do this.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. Call the roll.
Ms. White?
Aye.
Ms. Coco?
Aye.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Mrs. Schaefer?
Aye.
So,
Okay, thank you. The second recommendation is that the Board of Education approve per Ohio Revised Code 3327.01 the 2023-2024 school bus routes and pickup drop-off points, subject to necessary minor adjustments, which we know will happen, as approved by the superintendent, CEO of schools.
So moved.
Second.
Let's go. Questions or comments? Do you have anything?
Just that it's, again, as Ohio Revised Code requires this, and we know that as students enroll and withdraw, that these will be adjusted, but this is the most accurate we can give you at this time.
Questions or comments from the board? I say, as I went through them, it just really amazes me what our people in transportation, both our drivers and our bus aides, do when you look at the times that they have to be there every morning. And then you think of what time you'd actually have to wake up to get ready, to be alert, to drive a bus at that time of morning.
Forget it.
It's rather
Patty's eliminated.
it's rather impressive. So
Yeah.
extreme gratitude to all of them for what they do for all of us, and to Ms. Johnson for the work she does to get all of this together, because it looked really complicated.
It did. Yeah, it did.
Yes.
In fact, it jammed up my printer. Now I tried to print them out and then just, oh well. I know.
Please call the roll.
Ms. Coco?
Aye.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Mrs. Schaefer?
Aye.
Ms. White?
Aye.
Thank you. Your comments, Dr. Salka.
Thank you. I have a few, so bear with me. I just have a lot of noteworthy things that have been happening as we start up the school year. First off, just spent a lot of my time just troubleshooting a little bit. We're off to a good start, but certainly doesn't come without a few bumps in the road, and so we're sorting through that with the addition of many new staff members, kind of helping and guiding them as they've gotten underway, and just trying to help them. And we've had a couple unfortunate things that I'm not, overly thrilled about that are happening in our schools, but we're going to get that under wraps real soon here as it relates to behavior and things like that. But we do have a number of new programs that we've started, so certainly we're feeling the pains of that with, Parent Square, which is great, but it comes with a cost of trying to figure things out and work through that, navigating it. Our same goal, the transportation software, so those are just, working out the glitches there. So it's going to take a little time. I mean, we'll get there certainly, but just spent a lot of time kind of not getting a lot accomplished, but that's okay. We're just troubleshooting at this point, and so that's what I've been spending primarily a lot of my time doing. But we've had some great events. We had our convocation, as you know, and I do appreciate all of you being there, so thank you. Got some nice feedback from staff on that. We also had the tailgate, which was amazing, and in both of those instances, I want to thank my administrative team, primarily Christine with the tailgate, and actually in assisting with convocation. I could be a little fun to work with at times, right, when it comes to convocation and big events. Yes, we always have fun, but perfectionist that I am, crossing every T and dotting every I can be cumbersome with me. But and also my team and the principals for providing all of those events at the tailgates, and the staff members also who participated and helped. It's just a beautiful weather day.
Yeah.
We lucked out there, and just appreciate those who helped out with that. So thank you to all of them. And I want to thank Alex and Aaron for their great presentation. Do appreciate that. They're doing some great work, as you can see. Very, very innovative when we talk about that in our mission and vision, right, about innovation. And then two pieces of good news, and then I will stop. Christine informed me today that we will, NBC Nightly News picked up the tiger, the gentleman, the dad coming in with the mascot.
That was so neat.
So that'll be on Saturday night,
Oh,
the Saturday night edition. So that'll be some great, national coverage. So that was very, very, very cute. We were talking about that, and the idea to have him be the mascot was
Yeah, it was
wonderful.
awesome. That was
Yes.
so good.
And then lastly, I wanted to just take a moment to tell you about, and I know there's many other things happening, and I won't steal all of that from all of you, because I know you were out and about in the districts just as I was at open houses and all that other fun stuff. But we met today about the Artist in Residence program, and so I just want to let people know what that is going to be. So essentially, we received a grant from the Ohio Arts Council grant for $35,000, and we also received a GAR grant for $8,000. And I really want to give a shout out to Jen Schulman, who really was instrumental in writing those grants with the assistance of the Cuyahoga Valley Arts Center. But she really did the bulk of the work, and just really appreciative of that. And as a result, we are going to have artists come in and work with our students. They are Art X Love. I don't know how you say that. Is that how it is?
I think it's art times.
Art Times Love, that's what it is. Art Times Love. And they're going to come in and work with our students in actually grades K through 12, but they're going to primarily work with high school and middle school who will actually do the work, but they will solicit input from the elementary students because the ultimate goal is to create a piece that's around 28 feet by 8 feet art piece that will be hung in the new school's cafeteria where they have very large spaces. And so that's the goal. They're still kind of sorting through what the medium will be, but it's just amazing in that they're going to do this in a year's time, but it also is going to tie in with the theme of home is where the heart is, but art being, emphasized. And that will also be the theme of the art walk. And so that's just going to be a great connection. And they're going to ask for input, not just from our students, but I think the community as well, is the idea to get phrases and things and embed that in the graphic art that they were talking about producing. So we're really excited about that. I love that it's going to be in the new building and it's this notion of home. So I just want to take a moment to get you up to speed on that because I think you'll enjoy it and you'll have an opportunity for feedback and input on that as well. And I know some of you, probably all of you, will be very excited to be able to do that. So, so let's end with some good news. So thank you.
Thank you. Item I is board business. Number 1 is future agenda items. Just to orient us, the second meeting in September will be our presentation on the state report card. And then at the first meeting in October, Ms. Stoico is going to give an emergency levy update. And then second meeting October, Top Tigers will begin. And then in the November-December timeframe, one of our library board appointees and our park board appointee, their terms both expire December 31st. So in November, December, we have to talk about that. It's outlined in policy, the process that we go through, and then we'll have to post an interview for that. So keep those things in mind throughout the end of the year. And then did anyone have other things that I'm missing or didn't think of? Number 2, committee reports. Construction core team.
Yeah, I'm hoping that you all got the meeting notes, so I'm not gonna go over all that. It's a lot of technical stuff and still waiting for Dominion and the permits there, but it is coming along. I drove out there to see what was, and there is cement going up. I don't know if you, yeah, it's exciting. It really is. And I will say I did bug them a little bit about maybe they could do it by September instead of November, but I'm not holding my breath on that, but that's basically that all I'll have for that.
Thank you. And financial advisory committee.
Ooh, that's me. We met this week. It was a small group this week. The agenda, we went over the 6 to 12 building project updates, the state biennium budget update, which she touched on a few points on that. I have some of the things that we talked about, school funding, and but we're still on the guarantee at this time. And then we talked about, will we come off the guarantee or not? We don't know. And transportation, they talked about things that are going on there with Department of Education workforce. And then we talked about Ed Choice, excuse me, and how that kind of shakes out. And I can forward this on to you guys if you'd like to
Sure.
read the specifics. And that is about it.
Thank you, Mr. Schaefer. I don't know if you had anything for legislative, Mr. Harris. I know there's
No,
one
they'll be back in
recess.
session September 13th.
I wanted to ask if administration could in the future follow up on Read Ohio and because that's the governor's initiative on literacy and the literacy resources to see how we align with those. Because I'm concerned about that with what we're utilizing. And then the other piece was the requirement to have supply feminine hygiene products. If we could get a report to make sure that we're gonna be in compliance with
Yeah,
that.
we
So,
actually are. Right, Joe? I mean, we talked about that at the last meeting.
There's RFI out,
Sure.
RFP out from the OSC,